For more on this relationship between China and the UK, Doug Guthrie joins us. He's a visiting scholar at Georgetown McDonough's School of Business, and he's the former dean at Georgewotn University School of Business, just down the street, of course. So you know a lot about this. Let me start with the pictures we were showing earlier. This ceremony, all the symbolism that they have between the relationship between the UK and China. This is a very big reception. Are you surprised by any of it?
Not really surprised, but I can say that it is a big statement for the UK. I mean, there was some hiccup in the road about 2 years ago when Cameron met with the Dalai Lama, and there was some tension. And then there was this other direction that the UK was trying to really solidify its relationships by making a statement of a very strong relationship with Huawei. And so it seems very clear right now with Li Keqiang coming and such a big rollout of the red carpet, a lot of pomp and circumstance, it seems very clear the UK is casting its lot on the side of trade.
And there's money involved, right? The Chinese are helping build some of the rail lines in the UK as well. They announced nuclear deals. They announced some energy deals as well. All of this, is this what we have to look forward to in the next 5 years?
Not only the next 5 years for the UK, but the next 5 years for most of the world. And so there, to your point, there's a lot of money involved. There's, 14 billion pounds, maybe that, I don't know what that is, 24 $1 billion. Like, there's a lot of money to be made, but that's in some ways just the tip of the iceberg, because what we're talking about here is a statement about long-term investments that China has already been doing in places like Africa and other parts of Europe. And so the UK is saying, we're going to get in this game, and the US is going to be left behind if they don't.
This visa restriction we just talked about, them easing, making it easier for Chinese visitors to come to London, how significant is that?
I mean, on a global scale, it's not that significant because, again, China is having great relations, trade relations, the flow of immigrants across the world with most countries in the world. There are a few countries like the United States that are really dragging their heels on this. So again, I think that this is the UK saying, we're going to join the rest of the world. We're going to have great relationship with China, and that's where we're going.
I mean, I have to follow up with this because you've insinuated a couple of times the US isn't doing enough. What do you want the US to do?
Well, I just think the U.S. is playing a bit of a dangerous game here. China is our, second largest trading partner. There is no way that we are not going to continue developing relationships with China. The problem is trade relations for the United States are caught in a very political process, and so a lot of things from Congress to CFIUS end up stepping in the way of developing trade relations, but they don't always follow the greatest logic or rationale for it. And so I think the clear message is that China is sitting on $3 trillion of foreign exchange reserves. That money is going to be invested across the world. It's going to be invested somewhere, maybe Europe, UK. It's a question whether or not the US wants that money or not.
Now, we talked about the tourists and the money going into the UK, but there's also the reverse of that as well, right? Money coming from outside being invested into China in foreign direct investment. How much does the Chinese government want foreign direct investment to come in, and not just for the short term, but really for the long term?
So this is one of the big myths about China, is that we sort of think that China has stolen all of our jobs and is exporting to the world and is not an open market. China is actually a very open market in a number of ways. It's much more open than a lot of other developing economies were at similar points of development. There are complications with that, and it's certainly the case that China has stacked the deck in favor of some of its state-owned enterprises. But if you're one of the major companies that are investing in selling into the Chinese market, we need to be partners, and that's just the way it's going to be.
If we're talking to a CEO of a major multinational firm and they already have an existing relationship in China, and we see the deals out of the UK, the US, and all around the world, what's the strategy a multinational firm should have with China?
So in my view, the strategy is really twofold. On the one hand, you do have to think about things like cheap labor. Now, China's not the place of cheap labor that it was 10, 20 years ago. But there's also an interesting piece of China, which is about very sophisticated supply chain management. And the second piece of that puzzle then, that's the second tier strategy, is how do you use those relationships that you build up through supply chain management to get partly cheap labor, but also partly sophisticated supply chain management, and then also sell to the marketplace, the mythical billion-person marketplace. And so if you can, like some really good companies are thinking very deeply about this, and they're using China as sort of a platform that is one of their second or third largest major overseas platform to both export to the world, but at the same time capture internal market. And
what do you think I'm going to ask you, expected leaders there in the UK, Cameron, and possibly even the Queen, what do you think was talked about behind the scenes?
I think probably they talked about a few sensitive issues, but for the most part, they talked about trade. This is really about business dealings right now and getting the relationship back and about continue to hoist its economy out of the doldrums and really build both internal investment through China, but also an export-led development strategy.
They're certainly working on it. Doug Guthrie, thank you very much. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.